Hey, this is Joe Hubbard from JoeHubbardBassVideos.com, coming at you today with another lesson. And this is the 6th lesson in my Functional Diatonic Harmony course. Today's lesson is on mixing major and minor 2-5-1s with diatonic substitutions. So grab your bass and let's get started. Combining the diatonic substitutions with mixed major and minor tonalities, the harmonic possibilities require a total understanding of the basic 2-5-1 progressions in both major and minor key centers, as well as their respective diatonic substitutions. Mixing major and minor harmonic progressions is defined by this, and this is huge. This is just a huge overview. So we have to look at any combination of 2-5-1 in major, then any combination of 2-5-1 in minor. We have to understand both those things. Then we have to understand any combination of the 2-5-1s in major with diatonic substitutions. And then we have to understand any combination of the 2-5-1s in minor with the diatonic substitutions. Then we have to understand any combination of the 2-5-1s applied to mixed major and minor progressions. And then finally what we take is any combination of the diatonic substitutes applied to the mixed major and minor 2-5-1 progressions. Although the most common root motion in harmonic progressions is by moving down in fifths or up in fourths, most harmonic progressions will tend to use other root movement such as seconds and thirds as contrast before returning to the stronger and more common root motion of moving down in fifths or upward in fourths. One of the cornerstones of functional diatonic harmony is what's called the 1-6-2-5 progression, including variations using the diatonic substitution chords. The harmonic progression in major starts with the root motion moving down a third to the A minor 7 or 6 minor 7, which is the diatonic substitution for the 1 major 7. From there, it moves progressively down in fifths or up in fourths. When analyzing this progression, what we want to take a look at is we have C major 7. We need to analyze this as 1 major 7. It then moves down to the diatonic substitution chord, which is 6 minor 7. It then moves up a fourth or down a fifth to the D minor 7, then down a fifth or up a fourth to the G7, and then back to the C major 7. So we have 1 major 7 going to 6 minor 7, 2 minor 7, 5 7, going back to 1. This is what's known as a 1-6-2-5 progression. Looking at the bassline construction over this progression, I want to give you a few new ideas. So we're going to start this over the 1 major 7th chord by playing a pattern that's 1, 2, 3, 5. So I've got this over the 1 major 7, and that's a nice pattern, and I could move that around over different changes and keep that. And it's great for walking bass lines because it's 4 notes and it really spells and outlines the chord efficiently. If I then move to the 6 minor 7 chord, what I want to do is take a different technique, which is root 5th, and then I want to play a double chromatic approach combination to the next root of the next chord. So I go root 5th, and then I'm going to play a double chromatic from below. And this goes C, C sharp, and then the root of my next chord is a D. That goes into the D7. So far I've got, on the D minor 7 chord, I'm just going to arpeggiate it like we've done before. And then over the G7 chord, I'm going to do something slightly different. And this is kind of a cool technique where I take the guide tones of the 3rd and the 7th, which really outlines the chord without having to play the root, and then I play a chromatic approach combination into the next root of the next chord. So I have 3, 7, and then I have chromatic above, chromatic below, into that root. This is what's also known as a delayed resolution. So the whole thing that we have, the root motion moves down a third, then down another third, then up a second, and then up a fourth. Analyzing this progression, what we want to take a look at is we've got the 1 major 7. This is moving down to 6 minor 7, which is down a third. Then I move down another third, which is F major 7. Remember, F major 7 is a diatonic substitute for 2 minor 7, and then we move up a second, and that takes us back to the C major 7. So I've got 1 major 7, 6 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 7, 1 major 7. Looking at the bass line construction over this progression, I've altered a few things when moving into that new chord, the F major 7, to make it more smooth. So what I've got is the same process, which is root 2, 3, 5 over the 1 major 7 chord. Then I've got root 5th, but instead of going double chromatic from below, I'm going to go double chromatic from above, because look at where I am. That sets me up perfectly for that F. And then I've got the F, which is then going to the A, which is the third, then the D to the C. That's what's called a diatonic approach note. Don't worry if you don't understand about approach notes yet. In the course following the next course, which is the improvisation course, we're going to start to get into all of that stuff. So for now, just look at it and see, I'm telling you what it is, so just say, okay, that's an approach thing, but we'll really get into it in depth on that improvisation course. So I've got again the 1 major 7, then the root 5th double chromatic from above the root of the F. I'm playing A, which is the 3, D to the C, which is a diatonic approach note into the 5th, and then I play that same sort of idea. I'm going here, the B, the F, which is my guide tones. This time use that chromatic from below, chromatic from above, into the root of the 1 chord. So I've got the following progression. The root movement moves down a third, up a fourth, then down another third, up a fourth, and then up a fourth again. When analyzing this progression, what we want to pay close attention to is we've changed the harmonic rhythm. This means that each chord is only worth 2 beats now. So we've got a 4-bar phrase, but we have twice as many chords. So I've got my 1 major 7, and then I'm going to the 6, then the 2, and then the 5. And here's where this changes slightly, because instead of going back to the 1, I'm going to go to the 3, which is another diatonic substitute for the 1 chord. So I go 3, then 6, and then 2, and then 5. And you can see how this is an extension of that basic 1-6-2-5, but we call this the 1-6-2-5 and then 3-6-2-5. So again, 1 major 7, 6 minor 7, 2 minor 7, 5 7, 3 minor 7, 6 minor 7, 2 minor 7, 5 7, 1 major 7. Looking at the bass line construction over this progression, the main thing to take to heart is the fact that we only have 2 beats per chord. A lot of people think that this is harder, but in actual fact it's easier, because all I really have to reckon is the root on the downbeats, and then the link between each root is a chromatic approach note either above or below. And this is something that you really need to work on. You really need to work on being able to know where those chromatics are above and below and coming from any which way, so it's just a good thing to practice. So the idea is that, let me just start off by playing half notes. So I'm going 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So I'm actually playing that in time. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now all I have to do is put the chromatic approach above or below. And you know what? It doesn't matter how you do it. Just either above or below. And sometimes the position will dictate what is more natural or what comes easier to just do to get that type of sound. So here, notice I can change a little octave shift there as well. So that's something that you really want to work on. Spend a lot of time with progressions. And note this when you look at chord changes or you look at lead sheets. What is the harmonic rhythm? This is something that often goes amiss. People aren't really aware of this. You know, they're quite used to static chords or maybe one chord for 4 bars and stuff. But really look at it. How long is the rhythm of each chord? The next progression is in minor, and the root motion begins by moving down in thirds, then up a fourth, then down a fifth, and then up another fourth. This progression, what I really want to be aware of is that I'm in a minor key now, and I'm applying that same principle of the 1, 6, 2, 5 to the minor keys. So we start off with 1 minor major 7, and I go to 6 minor 7 flat 5. Remember, this is a diatonic substitute for 1 minor 6, but it's interchangeable with the 1 minor major 7. Okay, then I go to the 2 minor 7 flat 5. And then I go to the 5, 7 flat 9. So 1 minor major 7, 6 minor 7 flat 5, 2 minor 7 flat 5, to 5, 7 flat 9, back to 1 minor. Looking at how I put the bass line together for this, all I'm doing is adapting the same principles for major and making it work over the minor chords. The first pattern, 1, 2, 3, 5, works perfectly over the minor by just altering the third. So here I've got this. I then go to the 6 minor 7 flat 5, and I go root 5th, double chromatic, into the next root, which is the D minor 7 flat 5. I'm just going to arpeggiate that like I did with the major one. And then I'm going to play the same pattern over the dominant chord. Okay, and it works because you've got the 3rd and the 7th, which is outlining the dominant 7th chord, regardless of it being major or minor. And then I've got this chromatic approach combination below and above into the root. Or I could go above and below if I wanted into the root. It doesn't really matter. You can mix them up. So again, okay, now you go try it. This exercise follows the same formula, except that it goes down a third, then up an augmented fourth, and then down a fifth and up a fourth. Analyzing this progression, we want to take a look at the fact that we're going from 1 minor major 7, and this time we're going to flat 6 instead of 6 minor 7 flat 5. Now, it still keeps it a 1, 6, 2, 5 pattern, but the flat 6 has a different function. Remember, this is a diatonic substitute for 4 minor 7. 4 minor 7 was a reharmonization of 2 minor 7 flat 5. But it keeps that same essence of that 1, 6, and then we have the 2 minor 7 flat 5 to the 5, 7 flat 9. In analyzing this bass line, what we have to consider is the minor adjustment that we have to make when we play over the A flat major 7. It's essentially the same line with one note that's different. So I'm going to play the same thing over the C minor major 7, my root, second, flat 3, and then the 5. And then for the A flat, I'm just going to change one note from that A minor 7 flat 5 to the A flat. That's the only difference. So it's now this, root 5th, double chromatic into the D minor 7 flat 5, which I just arpeggiate up the chord to the 7th. Then I move by half step down one step to the 3rd of the G7 flat 9. Again, we're employing this concept of just using the guide tones, 3rd, 7th, giving us this little bit of an ambiguous sound, but those two notes really identify that dominant sound. It doesn't really matter, I can superimpose this over a major or a minor idea as we've been doing. So I go B, F, and then I do my chromatic below, chromatic above, and then into the root. And of course I could, if I wanted to, do the chromatic above and chromatic below. It doesn't really matter. I want you to make those decisions. Next harmonic progression's root motion moves down a 3rd, then down another 3rd, and then up a 2nd, and then up a 4th. When we analyze this progression, what we want to pay close attention to is the idea that we're going from 1 minor major 7 down to the flat 6 major 7, which is moving down a 3rd. Then I move down another 3rd. I actually go to, instead of going to the 2 minor 7 flat 5, I'm going to 4 minor 7. That's an alternative choice for the 2 minor 7 flat 5. And then we're going back up to the 5 7 flat 9. So I've got 1 minor major 7, flat 6 major 7, 4 minor 7, 5 7 flat 9, 1 minor major 7. Looking at the baseline construction of this, we're pretty much using the same principles, but I'm making slight alterations to get into the new chords. So I take that same root, 2nd, 3rd, 5th that I had in the original progression, and then I go to my root 5th, but instead of going double chromatic below into the D minor 7 flat 5, I'm going to go double chromatic from above into the F minor 7. So over the F, I'm going to play F, A flat, E flat, C, which is just the arpeggio, root, 3rd, 7th, and 5th. But because it's broken and displaced, it sounds quite angular. So, and then I'm playing that same line over the G7. Again, that works regardless of it being in major and minor, because I'm being a bit ambiguous by just using the 3rd and the 7th. And that's good to use now and again. If you use that all the time, it sounds too ambiguous. But if you just throw that idea in sparsely within the bass lines that you're already working, you'll find that that has a very good effect. The following progression's root motion moves down a 3rd, up an augmented 4th, up a 4th, down a 3rd, up an augmented 4th, down a 5th, and up a 4th. Analyzing this progression, we need to pay close attention to the fact that, again, we've changed the harmonic rhythm to 2 beats from the 4 beats that we had in the previous progressions. So what I've got going on here is I've got the C minor major 7, okay, and then from there what I'm doing is I'm moving down a 3rd to the A flat major 7th. Okay, so this is flat 6 major 7. So 1 minor major 7, flat 6 major 7, 2 minor 7 flat 5, 5 7 flat 9. Then I go to the E flat major 7. Remember, this is flat 3, so it's adopting that 3 6 2 5 thing that we had from the major. This is flat 3. It's a diatonic substitute for 1 minor 7. Okay, and then what we have from there is that going down to 6 minor 7 flat 5. Okay, then it goes to 2 minor 7 flat 5, and then to 5 7 flat 9, back to the 1 minor major 7. Looking at the bass line construction of this, what I want to do is highlight the roots, because that's what's playing on the downbeat every 2 beats. So if I play the roots, and then what I merely do is fill in those gaps with chromatic approach notes. Now is mixing the major and the minor 2-5-1 progressions with the diatonic substitutes. So we're going to be taking this 1-6-2-5 progression, and we're going to go from major to minor, and then back to major, and then back to minor. And in this sequence that we're going to play, the root motion is moving down a third, then up a fourth, then down a fifth, and then up a fourth. This progression, it's important to see that we're mixing between major and minor. I've got 1 major 7th going to flat 6 major 7. Then I've got 2 minor 7 going to 5-7 flat 9. So I've got major, minor, major, minor, and then back to major. Looking at the bass line construction of this, we're not doing anything different. We're just applying the same principles. I've got the root 2, 3, 5, root 5th, double chromatic below into the root of the D minor 7, and then I'm playing that dominant 7th pattern using the guide tones and the chromatic approach pattern that takes us back to the root of the C major 7. The following progression moves down a third, up an augmented fourth, up a fourth, down a third, up an augmented fourth, down a fifth, and up a fourth. In analyzing this progression, it's important to point out that we've altered the harmonic rhythm of the chords again. Each chord is now only worth 2 beats. And what we're doing is in the first 2 bars we're going major, minor, major, minor, and then the last 2 bars we're going minor, major, minor, major. Just to change it up a bit so you can get an idea of how to look at this. What you might want to do is sit down and write out all the possibilities that you can think of and just go through a few of those. It's just good for the soul. So what I've got here is I've got major, that's the 1 chord, and then I go to the minor, which is the flat 6. Then I go to the major, and then I go to the minor. Okay, the next 2 bars starts with the minor. So I've got E flat major 7, flat 3 major 7. Okay, then I've got major, which is 6 minor 7. And then I have minor, which is 2 minor 7 flat 5. And then I've got major, which is 5-7. And then it takes me back to the major 1. Baseline construction on this progression is much as the same as we had on the last minor progression that had the harmonic rhythm of 2 beats per chord. And the reason is because we're really only focusing in on these lines when we have this 2-beat deal as the root and then a chromatic approach. So even though the chord qualities are changing, it's pretty much the same line that you can play over it. This is a useful tip to understand when you're playing through changes like this. A lot of times these changes where they move in 2 beats are very fast in duration. So it gives you a better blueprint to kind of breeze your way through these. And you'll know that you'll be nailing all the harmony by doing it. So again, you know, we went from the 1, the 6, the 2, the 5, and then we had the 3 was the minor. Do you remember? So minor, major, minor, major, and then back to the 1. So it's pretty much the same as we had from before. wraps up today's lesson, but before we go, let's take a look at what we've learned. In today's lesson, we've learned how you can combine the basic definitive chords from both a major and a minor key area. We've also learned how to mix diatonic substitution chords from both major and minor and recognize them in a harmonic progression, and also understand the Roman numeral analysis that goes with that. We then learned the most common root motion for chord progressions and how to apply these principles to your own bass lines. This is the last lesson in this particular module. Next week we'll be starting a new training segment which will expand your harmonic vocabulary and understanding non-diatonic harmony, which requires more discipline between instruments than the diatonic harmony did. Remember that if music is a vehicle for expression, then the study and understanding of harmony should provide you with the proper tools and resources to accelerate the process to bring those expressions to life. Always, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively. I'll be checking in with you next week for Lesson 1 of my Functional Non-Diatonic Harmony course. Take care.